Boom! Always love to start with that little explosion because that's how we do it here. Guys, it's your boy Chuck. So excited, as always, to be here. Love, love, love my Tuesdays when I get to hang out with absolutely fucking phenomenal people and have a good time. And you know what? I think what I love about this show so much is I never have any fucking idea where it's going to go. I don't know. All I know is I have a creator on, and 99 times out of 100, and we haven't even done 100 shows yet. I absolutely just get along so well with the person. So I'm already excited. Joseph A. Michael, he's coming on tonight. He has a really cool, he has a bunch of cool sets of books. He works with really cool people. I don't know an awful lot about him, but I'm super excited to find out with you guys. So we're gonna have a really good time with that. Please like, share, comment out the fucking wazoo. I think we've got Facebook up and coming and happening. So let's check this one more time. Yeah, it's good. So you guys should be able to to comment, and we should be able to have our little back and forth witty repartee like we always do. I see that Steph already liked the video, so shit's happening tonight. But yeah, man, super excited. I know that Joseph is a writer. He's worked on a bunch of stuff. He had a Kickstarter that just ended like an hour or so ago, and yet he still wants to come talk with us. That's sweet of him. Yo, Chuck, I'm doing good, dude. I'm doing good. I feel like I'm getting out of a hole. I had a bunch of work that had piled on me, and I'm slowly getting it done. So I'm excited to have that finished and moving forward. And of course, we got Bilal coming in a week. Keep your eyes out for that motherfucker. That's going to be great. I'll try to tune back in. Had to share. You're a keeper. I know writers, right? Oh, don't worry, man. Next week I have a podcaster, and she's absolutely amazing. Her name is Just Rogi. You might end up liking her. So new personalities, new people to meet. I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself, buddy. Yeah, so dude, so am I. So am I. I'm so excited. This will be issue 3 out of 4. So really excited to get this series almost done and to really show you guys what we got going on. So yes, very, very, very excited. You know what though? Let's fucking do this. Like why are we holding back for so long when we've got a super awesome guest hanging out, waiting to hang out with us. So without any more ados.
Canadian bacon is actually really good, and it's nothing like normal bacon, and it's better than ham, which you guys seem to call Canadian bacon. I'm very good at writing. I write very well. Yeah, it's Shop Talk.
Do some of your audience members like the word fuck? Cool. Then I'm going to keep saying fuck. Because I care.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on?
I love watching people's reactions to the video, by the way. Especially when I know they probably have never seen it before.
It's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, what do we got? Oh, yeah, I know. I wrote charts. It's so frustrating and actually I changed it. I did end up editing it, but it's so annoying when as an editor we spot those things afterwards.
Hey, we can talk stocks if you want to, Chuck.
Oh, I'm down for that. Well, okay, so first off, Joseph, tell us a little bit about you, at least as far as comicdom is concerned.
So I started about 10 years ago, getting my chops with independent books. I think that's maybe how we all started. Hit up a local con for the first time in like 15 years. I was like, oh man, I've been wanting to write a comic for like probably 15 or 20 years. And found an artist, pitched some ideas, got my first book out. And then it kind of was an addiction after that. Got a few more independent books, started writing a lot more, learning all the pitfalls of the trade, I guess. And then started working ahead, getting some full series together. I know you mentioned earlier putting issue 3 of Belial out. It's that feeling of accomplishment when you get to the end of the series or the story arc. It's like none other because it's a grind getting there. Whether you're financing yourself or you're doing the art yourself or whatever. But then when you finally get that full story out there in the world, it's like you get to sit back, you get to drink coffee, you get to, relax, have an ah moment, maybe watch a little bit of TV, grab a drink or something like that, and then just kind of soak it up for a second and just feel accomplished. And like you said, getting out of that hole, with work and stuff. And I feel that way every time I wrap up a story arc or something like that. You just feel like you've accomplished something. I mean, doing a book in and of itself is an accomplishment, right? But getting a whole series out there, that's a whole nother level of accomplishment. And you just feel like you finally got out of that hole. We just wrapped up that Kickstarter campaign. I'm like, I can finally chill out a little bit, relax a little bit, and before I have to look forward to what's next on the horizon. So.
But we're all kind of masochists, aren't we? Like, that cup of coffee never lasts very long. Like,
that's
you
right.
take a sip and you're like, oh shit, I have a good idea I want to try. Like, it usually ends up going cold because we've already moved on and started working on whatever's next.
For sure, yeah. I mean, creators, I think we're all wearing different hats, like, all the time. So you got your editor hat, you got your writing hat, you got, your artiste hat, so to speak, and you keep moving in all directions. So it's never a dull moment for a creator. Especially one like yourself that has a lot of projects that they're working on simultaneously.
Well, and I mean, this too. The one a lot of us forget about is because we're indies, we all have that publisher hat, that small business person hat, that entrepreneur's hat, where, you're looking at all the different angles. And I mean, I know a lot of us who fucking hate that hat because that hat keeps us from wearing the writer's hat, the creator's hat, But I mean, really, that's probably the most important one, because if your shit isn't seen, the other hats almost don't matter. You know what I mean? Like, and that sucks, but it's kind of, the rude truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's total unfortunate reality. I mean, you could have the most beautiful book in the world, but if your brother or your sister or your parents or your friends are the only readers, and they don't, expand the audience, then, maybe that's all it was meant for. I don't know. But, I like to think that all the hard work and effort that we put into making a comic book or a series is meant for a wider audience. So, it's really a shame when you have beautiful books out there and they don't reach that, that scale where they get in front of enough eyeballs where enough people can appreciate it. Yeah. Because there's some wickedly talented creators out there. And it's like, dude, really? I mean, like, they sold 50 copies of this book. Like, this deserves to be, in bookstores and, you know what I mean? And funding for thousands of dollars on Kickstarter. And sometimes it's a head scratcher. And like you said, the publisher hat and the marketing hat, I mean, talking with Donovan and Nicholas, I know, 8 to 10 hours a page for the art side is possible, but a lot of times we don't factor in, I mean, marketing can easily be that. The publishing and marketing aspect can easily be that, and then more, it's depending on how far you want to push it. We were fortunate, we had some help with marketing this last Kickstarter, so we did a lot better than our first 2 campaigns. And there's just, so much prep work and effort and, getting in front of those audiences repeatedly. When you market a Kickstarter, it's not just one time post out there in the world. It's like, oh my God, great book. Let's buy millions of dollars. You got to keep grinding and hitting it 3, 4, 5 times a day, to the point where you feel bad because you feel like you're begging people for money. You feel like the same people have seen the post 20 times. But I think that comes with the territory.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally feel Brian Manell. What is this? Comfort? This is terrible. kind of. Well, so you just jumped into something that I'm actually kind of interested. You had someone else come in and help you with the marketing.
Yep.
What was that like?
So when I started, our first Kickstarter campaign was like 2014 or something. And then kind of gave Kickstarter a break, hit the con circuit really hard, did like, I don't know, 10, 15 different states, 30 different shows, promoting my independent books. We sold well, but it was a grind, all the travel, to cover expenses. And, we joke as an independent creator, you made it when you break even, right? So if you're covering your table, if you're covering your food in your hotel, like, not even mentioning like the production costs of the book, maybe printing cost if you're lucky, but then you made it. So we had some wickedly successful shows in the eyes of independent creators, but still, like, I'm not getting ahead because I'm covering table, travel, food, maybe the print costs. So yeah, it's a grind. And you know, we were covering the thing earlier where we were talking about you wear all these hats. You wear a publisher hat, you wear a marketing hat, and stuff like that, and you just don't have enough time in the day. You know, if you got the editor hat too, you got the writer's hat. You know, if you're an artist, inker, colorist, letterer, I try to letter too, and then graphic design. So there's so many different. We're getting pulled in so many different places. I'm like, yeah. I gotta, you know, where can I put a little bit of money or resources to kind of free up my time as a creator so I can refocus? Like you said, if you could just focus on editing and writing, like, you could be a master of that, right? And you wouldn't have to be worried about being pulled into the marketing realm or pulled into the publishing realm or the finance, because we're all financiers, right? You know, where someone said, don't feel bad to give yourself an executive producer credit as a publisher or as a writer when you're the one that's, you know, financing everything. Because that's such a hugely overlooked thing, is that, you know, everyone's got to pay bills, everyone's got to eat. But, you know, all the pressure of making sure that you can afford the print runs, afford the marketing campaign, you know, all that stuff falls on the shoulders of the producer, the executive producer, whoever that is. That's a big responsibility, and I don't think that people give enough credit. But yeah, so I, you know, was fortunate to stumble upon Nita. Helped me out a lot on this last campaign. Really helped me crank it out to the groups and stuff on Facebook, and you know, help recommend some different podcasts like yourself to reach out to and kind of help spread the message. So really fortunate to have Nita helping me with this last campaign.
Did she recommend us?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Nita. I really appreciate that. If you're out there watching, I really do. That was really sweet of her. No, and you know what? I saw, and you're working with Nicholas Touris on this last book, Misadventures, right? Yeah,
we're you know, partners on this book. I saw his art long time ago, just followed his stuff, and then had an opportunity where he, you know, was talking about wanting to do some writing but didn't have time. I'm like, man, I'll help you with this project. You know, let's crank it out. Let's go and let's do this together, and let's make something awesome. So we revamped, you know, totally breathed fresh life into an old project that got stale, brought in a whole bunch of new characters, new story, brought in an editor to help us kind of straighten out the roadmap and get as a whole, you know, story arc. Got it picked up by Scout. In the meantime, we got these issues cranked out so that we could actually have them in comic book format. So, but yeah, Nick's a great collaborator, great dude, great personality. Be nice if we were closer, being, you know, almost cross.
Isn't he in like Brazil?
Argentina, I think. Yeah, so we get to sparingly talk, and when it is, you know, sometimes it's like a Zoom or a Skype call or something like that. But yeah, we're, you know, like yourself, we're probably interested in a lot of the same things, whether it's gaming or, you know, comics or whatever. And it's just a shame that, you know, there's that physical distance. So we can't get together and like play some D&D or whatever. I mean, you could virtually, and I guess it's kind of a similar experience, but it's not quite the same when you can high five your friend or, you know, give them a hug after a long day or, you know, whatever. So that's kind of why the convention circuit's kind of nice. So in the event that we get to a convention together, you know, get Nicholas stateside, I think that would be a pretty cool experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen him. I mean, he's done so much stuff with like Russell Nolte and so many other things. So yeah, I love his stuff. And is this so? I know that for a while there, he was drawing a bunch of the D&D party members of the campaign that he was a part of. Is this a part of that campaign, or is this something separate or kind of inspired by that? Or
so the art style and kind of like maybe some of the thematic elements, you know, he loves D&D so much, and he's always drawing those like chibi characters and you know, the avatar characters and stuff for his own campaigns and for commissioners and stuff. That definitely influenced the style of the book. So we like to bill it as an Adventure Time, because Adventure Time kind of has that D&D flair where, you know, you never know what kind of characters you're going to run into, like a pirate cat or, you know, a rock star tree or something like that. So we kind of took those elements, bundled them up, and threw them into this book. Just have something you could read, smile, laugh, you know, just takes you back to the old days of comics. It's not super serious or dramatic, even though there's places for those books. But we just want to do something lighthearted, very expressive. His style is very animated. has that kind of manga flair. So you have like the melting ice cube on the head, and you have the steam pouring out of the ears.
Yeah.
Kind of almost takes you back to the Bugs Bunny days. But we do a lot of 80s and 90s cartoons homages in this book, which we think are a lot of fun. So although it's an all-age book with a little bit of foreboding, overtones, it's, I think an adult would pick it up and have fun with it too. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I love, I know that when I first started, because we have a book on Scoot 2, Cat Dad and Supermom's on there. And at first I was like, oh, we got this great kids book. And it's like, no, it's not a kids book. I'm like, what do you? It's totally a kid's book. He's like, no, it's all ages. And I'm like, oh shit, it really is, isn't it? Like, because that is the thing. Like, and that's kind of, I think, what a lot of us strive for is to be able to write something that a kid would really enjoy, but that a parent would also enjoy reading or watching or checking out with them. Which is, where Disney and stuff at Pixar, where they've really come on strong. So I think that's something that I think the rest of us are trying to do. Is that something that you guys were inspired by and kind of hoping to accomplish as well?
Yeah, you look at, is it kid appropriate? And if it checks that, box, if you're not dealing with like mature themes, then you got to do a little bit of, love letters for your adult crowd. So I think, by pulling in, we were heavily influenced in Nicholas's too, with a lot of like Brian O'Malley and Jonan Vasquez and Scotty Young, and Craig McCracken and stuff. So we kind of pulled all these bits and pieces from like the animated world, and also like some of our most beloved comic book illustrators, and we kind of like wrapped it up in a ball and said, if this was an art style, what would it be? And I think he kind of nailed it, because we got the zany, the campy. I was on a cast the other day, and they're like, man, that actually we did a little motion cartoon for a couple pages of our book, and it has like Tim Burton vibes. We got like the creepy music playing in the background, and we got these like demented robo divas. So although there's not blood, guts, cursing, adult situations or anything like that, it has that like Coraline kind of overtone that you don't know, like characters are never safe until they get to the end of the book. And if they're safe by the end of the book, then they made it. But there's always that foreboding feeling of who's watching you, who's hanging over you. So because of that, and because all the homages and love letters that we did to like 80s and 90s cartoons and animation, it is an all age. It's a true all ages book.
Yeah.
And but there's nothing that a kid's gonna be like, oh my gosh, those words, or blood or guts, and like nothing like that. So it's appropriate for kids, and it's truly all ages. So, but yeah, it's kind of like the unicorn, right? As a writer or creator or artist, to have something that's satisfying for kids and adults, and they kind of each get their own value out of it. So what a kid is going to get out of this is going to be something completely different from an adult. And having that heavy nostalgic heart in me from 80s and 90s cartoons and video games and toys, like that's what calls to me. So I like buried all that stuff as Easter eggs and some more apparent throughout the series. Lots of nostalgia. So that's what calls to me as an adult. And then also, the style of the art, the expression of the characters with that manga feel really calls to a kid. So an 8-year-old can enjoy it, a 50-year-old can enjoy it, and they get something completely different out of it, but they're reading the same book with the same characters. Yeah. So
I really love that, because like as a creator myself, when I came out, I wanted to write stuff for me. You know what I mean? Like that I was going to be able to enjoy. So there was lots of swearing and tough situations and all that kind of shit. Now I had a blast with that. And now I'm realizing, yes, of course, that is the stuff that I love. But even doing kid stuff is actually like, it's a really fun challenge.
Yeah.
Because it's like, look, if I can write something that I sit down and read and I enjoy, and a kid can do that too, and I don't feel like I'm fucking up their mind,
right?
Then,
exactly.
Whoa, like that's actually kind of cool. Like it's a really neat feeling, and I never imagined it. Like it's so weird to now be able to look and go, man, I've written a couple kid stories, and actually, it's real. Like there's I don't know. It's like it makes the heart warm. Like you just feel like, dude, I was able to do this thing, and I feel really good about it.
Randy the other day on his cast was talking about like back in the 50s and 60s, like they had the Marvel family, and like the villains were like super zany, like a worm, you know, a mind control worm and this other stuff. And we kind of lost touch with that. You know, we kind of moved into these very, you know, serious and dark villains and things. And, you know, he kind of wished that there is a callback to that kind of innocent time in comics. Yeah. And I was like, well, our book is kind of that. You know, not to sell just our book, because there's a lot of other great independent books that are kind of there. But that was, like you said, you pick up a book. You don't have to get seriously invested, like mentally or think a lot about it. You can just have fun. And comics are an expressive art form that you just sit down. They're just supposed to be fun. Like they're not, I don't know. I don't want to talk politics, but you don't have to get sucked into all the politics and warfare and stuff like that. There's a time and place for that stuff. But sometimes, you know, you just want to have that inner child in you come out. Just grab a book, flip through it, laugh a little bit, you know, have fun. And you don't have to invest or leave anything of yourself with that book. It did what its purpose was, to make you laugh, smile, harken back to your teenage years or your middle school grade years, and that's it. It did its job, right? So yeah. I think, I don't know, maybe that's a narrow view, but I think that in a way, comics have always been that, right? Just to bring you back to your youth. So if you're a kid reading it, then that's perfect. If you're an adult reading it and you're remembering your youth, then the comic did its job. And I guess that's what comics always been for me, at least.
Yeah, well, and we all have to bring our inspirations and the things that we enjoy to it, and yeah, so I totally feel you there. I didn't read kids comics so much when I was a kid, so the ones I did read were like the Sunday morning cartoons, so like Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, all that kind of stuff. So sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of that in some of the stuff that I write, because again, it's there and it is an influence, and whether you think about it or not, that stuff shows up somehow.
Yeah. JD was talking on his podcast the other day about, you know, what are you writing comics for, right? You know, is it first and primarily foremost what you love? Is it something that you want to put out in the world because you're going to love it, or are you putting out something out there because you know that other people are going to find satisfaction, or other people are going to find, you know, educational bits or hope or whatever? You know, the Heroes for Causes projects, those are all about hope and inspiration. You know, and that's something I like to put out there. But the Misadventures, it was just something that was supposed to be fun, lighthearted, and like you said, it's stuff I love. You know, as you go back to those 80s and 90s, those times watching Saturday morning cartoons. And then even, you know, as a older teenager, you know, watching Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that, and, you know, not feeling guilty about it because it's just supposed to be a lighthearted, fun cartoon for all ages, right? Even though the art style is very much for a kid, but I think adults got, you know, their own thing out of Powerpuff Girls, right? Zany villains, and it almost had those kind of foreboding vibes a little bit from the Tim Burton, because that creepy him character, the villain, like that was a scary villain. You know, it's probably a little intense for a kid to watch Powerpuff Girls and have a Red Lobster, you know, that voice that just kind of stays with you even after you finish an episode of Powerpuff Girls. That's creepy. And so I guess the good stories and the good products have that in there somewhere. They have that kind of element of mystery or suspense that, you know, are the characters going to be okay? We don't know.
Yeah.
Buttercup, yeah.
Well, okay, so here's a crazy question. You're talking about fantasy, and I feel like fantasy and then a lot of the cartoons that you were talking about, they actually tend to have sort of when it comes to continuity, they handle it very differently, because fantasy tends to be very heavy-handed continuity.
Yeah. And
the Saturday morning cartoons tend to fluff it off. Yeah. Where were you in that when you were doing Misadventures? How seriously do you take the continuity? And do we have a story that's continuing on, or do we just have characters who are having new zany adventures every week, and it only matters in the context of that particular story?
Yeah, that's why editors like yourself are gold, because you know, people that stray very far writer side and I leave my editor behind, or my self-editor is just completely worthless and it's not going to help me get on the right path. I need to be brought back onto the path. So Mike did a great job kind of being like, okay, well, we got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the end has to kind of resolve what we set up in the beginning. So as a writer, when you set out, you're like, oh, I just want to, you know, put these characters to life, and you give them independent voices, and you just kind of, you let them move around in your world, and see the world through their eyes and experience, you know, how they experience and their attitude and their voice, and let that play out. So that's kind of how I approach it, and know kind of generally where we want to go. And then as an editor, with the editor hat, it's like, no, well, we got to kind of have this more linear arc, this more linear path. You know, what's the purpose of the story? Because I think if you just put two characters out in the world and they just, random things happen to them, right? It could be interesting, but it might not be satisfying by the end of the book.
Yeah.
So an editor's going to be like, well, we have to have some kind of reader closure, reader satisfaction by the time you get to the end. You know, what did the characters learn? What was the character arc? So that's why editors are gold, because they kind of keep you on track, and, you know, make you ask yourself those hard questions, so that you're not just writing lazy, you know, fun stuff that you want to write, but you're actually putting in the extra hard work to make sure that it's going to have a payoff for the readers or the viewers. So.
The toughest thing I've ever had to say to someone upon finishing reading their book is, this isn't a story. This is a bunch of things that happened.
Events,
what is the point? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's the point? We told a story. I'm like, no. A story is the beginning, a middle, and an end. This is a bunch of shit happened, and I don't know why I'm reading it or what the purpose of it was. And they're like, well, that's a lot to have to work on. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. It's tough, man.
It's funny because as a writer working with an editor, you kind of leave your ego behind, right? You're like, all right, dude, just school me like I'm a 5-year-old and I don't know what I'm doing. So you got to have thick skin. And I've taken more abuse from my editor than I think I've taken from any of my friends or family. But at the end of the day, I know that he's doing it in my best interest so that we have the best product available. And, you know, working with artists and creators and writers, you know, we get very sensitive sometimes. So I always try to distance, you know, if we work on a project like Heroes for Causes, you know, we have Donovan, who's the penciler, character concept artist, then Kieran is our inker, and then we have February as color. So I kind of try to keep a degree of separation between Mike, the editor, and the creators, because I know that he might say something with good intentions, but, you know, someone else might take it offensively. So I try to translate and just, you know, put everything in as good as terms as possible. So it's always viewed as constructive criticism. And if we do have to make changes, it's not always like, hey, you didn't draw this right. It's like, I think we can improve this by, you know, kind of changing these few things. What do you think?
Well, and see, I'm so glad that you're doing that, because it's tough as an editor. You know, like, if I'm talking directly to the writer, then I know I'm talking to you, and I know what our relationship is, and I know how to deal with you. Or we have a new relationship, and we're figuring it out, so I'm gonna, you know, tiptoe in. But I've had times where, like, I have a good relationship with the person. We're talking, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man, this page was bullshit. Like, this thing that they sent you is crap. Yeah. Only to find out, oh, they're reading the shit that I'm saying. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
I am so sorry. I was not talking to you. I was talking to my friend who I can say this shit to you. I would never have said this to your face. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? So, like, and at that point, you have to tell the writer, motherfucker, you have to tell me when there's other people in the room. Yeah. That's not fair.
Threw you under the bus.
Right? We got Cranky Telepath in the house. Thank you, man. If you guys have any questions, you're wondering anything, please hit us up. If you have any questions about what Joseph is doing, or about either any of his projects, whatever, or if you just have creation questions, we're here. Mike Williams says it's the mirror beat from the beginning of the story. We need to see that character return to the old world, but change in some way. Yeah, absolutely. Editors, their word weaponization can be lethal, but necessary. Well, and as long as we know who we're talking to,
right,
we're good. But yeah, if you're suddenly And I've had to do that before where, it's like, oh, you need me to talk to the team? Okay, I'm going to really watch my words then.
Yeah. I mean, anything taken out of context can be completely blown out of proportion, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to see how, your words to a friend, when they're meant tough love or when they're meant, based on your relationship, can be completely, skewed when read by an outside party that has no, grasp of the context or whatever. So
Yeah.
I take a lot of abuse. It's a running joke from Mike. But I know it's well intentioned. I know it's from the tough love the editor had. And at the end of the day, you just want the writer to have the best product as possible, because that reflects on you as an editor.
Yeah.
And if you're the editor and you have a story that's just a bunch of mud, it's like, what happened here? So if you're going to be connected, you want the writer to be doing their job. So if they don't have a story, beginning, middle, and end, you just have characters wandering around having random stuff happen to them. You want them to have a book that's going to be satisfying to a reader. So
now you keep saying your editor. Is that Mike Schneider or?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know a lot of Mike editors, but I was pretty
he's
sure.
one of them. Yeah, we'll have to get him on a podcast at some point. I'm kind of leery because he's very outspoken. He'll say whatever's on his mind. So I don't know what he might say, but
this would be a good show to have him on, actually. Then
we should schedule that.
Right? But we will next time. We can definitely do that. Speaking of, though, you do have another teammate. You want to bring someone out?
Yeah, Donovan, artist from the Heroes for Causes and co-creator. What's up?
Donovan, what's up, man?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm well, thank you.
So you and I we've never met or anything. Can you tell me a little bit about you, what you do, all that sort of great stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just a local Vegas artist. Joseph, I'm lucky enough to drive Joseph nuts on our third book now. We're part of Heroes for Causes. So Joseph and our other partner, Jeremiah, go out and find different organizations that represent some kind of life-altering disease or challenges for children. And then we attempt to distill a story that's very much in the vein of Lee and Ramita, Spider-Man's. And we try and get a story that's a little educational, but mostly entertaining, that kind of takes these real-world kids and their challenges and puts them in the super heroic. And then that way they can see that they themselves are actually heroic and hopefully connect with these characters. And we're slowly building a pantheon. And yeah, that's it. I just draw what Joseph writes. I attempt to draw.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we try.
So
no, that's
Chuck,
dude, that's such a good idea. Yeah.
This is Center Ice. It's based off of a kid with brain cancer. He's beaten brain cancer 3 or 4 times now. He's 14, and he plays competitive hockey at a very high level. So in this true sense of the world, he is a real life superhero. And our mission with Heroes for Causes is to tell his story, so that other kids battling brain cancer can find hope in their own journey. So that's him, and he's pretty close with Tampa Bay Lightning down there.
Did you research me?
Did I research you?
Did you research me when you came into the show? Dude, you're bringing a hockey book onto the Canadian show.
You, right?
Are you serious right now?
All right, let's pump that.
Yeah, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
that's dude.
Villain.
You never see hockey books. That's wicked.
It's called Center Ice, right?
Yeah. Well, the kid wasn't. I shouldn't say kid. The young man. When we first approached him, he wasn't, and Joseph will speak more eloquently than I can to this, but he wasn't really a big superhero fan, but he's a huge hockey fan. What we did, we took hockey and Shazam, unless somebody from DC is watching, in which case it was completely unrelated, and we kind of mushed them together. So he has a magic hockey puck that enables him to have superpowers for one hockey period, and that's it. So he has to conserve what he does, and he has to be weird. He has to be aware of the time.
Yeah. Dude, that is so cool. Okay, so Mike Williams here. He says, "Not true. We have Casey Jones in Team NT. He has a stick. Okay, but he's not. It's not hockey in a freaking in a comic. It's just a guy who wields a hockey stick. Come on, man. That's not even the same thing. I appreciate the hockey stick, but seriously." That's not the same thing. Dude, I love that you guys are, and this is just amazing. Like, I love that you guys are doing this. Do you guys have anything where, like, portions are going towards the charities or anything like that? Like, is that?
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joseph.
So every book that we do, we always partner with some kind of nonprofit. So with Center Ice, it was American Cancer Society. So the book is to primarily raise awareness for American Cancer Society. And you know, the idea is all profits will go towards whatever charity is we're working for on that book. So Center Ice was American Cancer Society. Pathway, our cystic fibrosis book, was the Colton's Legacy Foundation. Our third book will be the Children's Diabetes Foundation from Colorado. So we try to do a big print run so that they can use it for like, you know, benefits, walk, marathon kind of stuff, any kind of special events that can hand them out. And before COVID, the idea was that we get out to a few conventions, you know, either myself, Jeremiah, Donovan, or as a team, and we just hand out the books for free. And we say, if this book inspires you, please make a donation to the charity on the back of the book. That's the whole concept. So the core team, we're volunteers. So Donovan puts in countless hours on the artboard, doing character concepts and the pencils. You know, I do a little bit with writing, and then Jeremiah is doing all of our outreach and marketing and kind of like the medical link to make sure that all of our stories are sympathetic towards the cause and also factual. Because the last thing we want to do is offend anybody that's, you know, connected with any of the causes that we do. We want to be, you know, true with the causes that we represent. Because, you know, like Donovan said, we're doing a very lighthearted take on some of these things and viewing a superhero that's dealing with that stuff. But that's not the primary focus. You learn about that stuff in their backstory. So you get to pick up the book, you get to, you know, be entertained, and then, you know, you see some of those elements woven into the character in a more subtle way. And then by the time you get to the editorialing, you learn about the true superhero that inspired, you know, the superhero that we've created. Everything comes 180, and you're like, oh man, that's a book about a cancer hero. But, you know, that's not, you know, our title card. Our title card is a hockey, you know, superhero called Center Ice, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you said, Chuck, you know, writing a book that's truly all ages, you know, it takes a few more steps. You know, it takes more effort. Can everybody go out there and put out a booby book and probably sell a lot of them? Yeah, there's a good chance. But, you know, if you have a booby book that also has a good story, then even better, right? So if you can take that extra step, go that extra effort, you know, make sure that, you know, if you're going to do the all ages thing, you're servicing your adult crowd, you have something extra for them, and you have something extra for the kid reader. And this, you know, how many people have put out, this is cancer, this is how many people it affects, this is, you know, these are the stats, and just, it's a very bland, you know, boring read, versus, you know, tying it into a cohesive story that's done in 18 pages, kind of like a one shot, you know, linking it in a factual way to the actual cause, so people are learning about, you know, pediatric brain cancer while they're reading this. And thank you, Michael. Yeah, Donovan did a fantastic job. I mean, I can't speak highly of him enough.
Dude, that covers, like you said, that covers killer. Well, and I'm so glad that you guys, like, the way you're doing it, because I mean, if I saw a book called Center Ice, I'd be like, oh, badass, let's check it out. Of course, if I saw a book called Cancer Hero, I gotta say, probably not picking it up. Like, I'm a lot less likely to pick it up. So I think that was a very good move on your part.
And we all have a heart towards these causes, and, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, you know, we don't want anybody to have to deal with, you know, the repercussions of these disease and stuff. But also, you know, to fairly represent it and to get it out there in such a way where a kid can have their very own Superman. I mean, that's our mission. So can you or I relate to Superman or Donovan? Probably not so much. Can we relate to the billionaire Bruce Wayne? Probably not so much. But if there's a cause that we're connected with through a relative, a loved one, a friend, then can we, connect to that character a little bit more? Probably. So.
Do you have people coming to you going, hey, I have this person you've got to talk to, you know what I mean? Like, who I think would be perfect. Like, is that starting to happen for you guys now, or?
Yeah, we, so went on like a Florida vacation a couple years ago, stayed at a Airbnb, and always take a couple books with you, right? No matter where you go, always talking books or always talking about your projects when you have a receptive ear. So they got to learn about it because we started talking about comics. And the one lady from the UK was talking about how they have like a cousin that has muscular dystrophy. So we're like, absolutely, muscular dystrophy is on our radar. If they can be our inspiration for the character, then fantastic. We kind of have half of the puzzle completed. The second half is getting in touch with the charity that represents muscular dystrophy, and then kind of working out the logistics of, getting the project together, getting the project printed, figuring out production dates and stuff like that. So we're always open if anybody has suggestions. We have a teammate on the Heroes for Causes team. I think that autism, they kind of affected, some of his family members and stuff. So that's on our radar as well. So we have autism, muscular dystrophy, lupus, and then what was the other one, Donovan?
I was hoping you'd remember. I don't. Lupus was the one was your last one.
Jeremiah keeps us all together because he's the link.
He's on top of it.
He's the link to all the organizations and the charities. So he's like the PR face. So he's the one that is kind of keeping us all organized. And then I rely on him to keep our dates and our times straight, our meetings. And then Donovan relies on me to kind of crack the whip and make sure that he's drawn what I wrote on the page. So.
Okay, so getting into this, Brian had a question, but actually I'm gonna take your question, Brian, and I'm gonna work it because now we got two guests. So, how do you personally tap into writing or drawing from the perspective of a kid, from personal experience, or do you read other media to get into that mindset? So understanding, especially for you, Donovan, understanding your audience, how do you guys basically kind of work your styles, whether it's writing or art, towards your audience?
Go ahead, Joseph.
I don't know. I think I can speak for all nerds and geeks everywhere that, we're the eternal women and man children. Like we're always locked in that childhood, persona or perspective, and we never want to grow up. If we could just live in a Toys R Us 24 hours a day, I think that would be where we'd prefer to be. But for me personally, I think, I'm very much in tune as like an empathetic, an empath, so to speak. I was just at a smoothie place tonight, and the manager was talking about how she had such a rough night, didn't want to be dealing with, college kids and customers there. And I just sat there and listened, 20 or 30 minutes, just, let her spill it all out. And so she went from yelling at her other staff members to, working alongside with them. And I think it's just part of my fabric is always trying to understand my audience. So, I'm not going to say anything like, oh, just relax or just, chill out. It's going to be like, yeah, I understand that you had a rough day. I wouldn't want to be through that. You probably put up with a lot of people that were being rude to you. It wasn't fair. Just make sure that you guys know, that you're all on the same team. So try to be more patient with one another. So hopefully that answers it. If my target audience is a kid, or if my target audience is a young cancer patient, putting myself in that mindset and, what would they like to read on a book that would inspire them, give them hope, give them, something to look forward to. If they had representation in their very own superhero they could connect to, like, would that be valuable to them? And with the misadventures, if we're trying to write a book that's all ages and we want to put them on this, fantasy adventure, these characters that start out very polar opposites, but then they end up becoming, best friends, buddies by the end of the book. Is that something that's heartwarming? And is that something that the target audience is going to connect to? So I might spin that back at you, Chuck, but I'll let Donovan give his answer first.
Mine's easy. I draw childishly, so as Joseph will attest, it's perfect. It just looks like something a kid did anyway, so we're good to go. I luck out because like he said, I do always think like a kid, but I have 6 kids of my own. So it's been easy if you know, my 10-year-old usually close by when I'm drawing. So if I don't get the, oh, that's kind of cool, Dad, or if I at least get a shrug out of him, I'm like, all right, I might be on the right path here.
I love that. Do you do, by the way, for your like that cover and all that, do you do everything like pencils, inks, colors all the way through? Is that all you?
No, that's it. Joseph actually has got us in touch with just because of the time constraints and because we are doing it pro bono. So I do my day job. I do a couple other books for some of the local writers here in Vegas. So I kind of have to smush the drawing together. And on our first book, it was just too time consuming for me to do everything. So luckily, Joseph was able to find some really talented inkers and colorists out there. You know, and we kind of fold that into when we go to do their pitches for the fundraising. So I'm able to lie and be like, listen, if it looks ugly, it's my fault. If it looks great, it's the inker and the colorist's fault. So I hide behind that.
I like that. I like that exceedingly humble take on it. Very nice.
So for you, Chuck, I mean, what's, you know, I know we touched on that briefly earlier, but what's your take on that question?
I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. We all have a little bit of that kid inside of us. For me, like even having children has been a huge help. And I know early on, I remember one of the things that I picked up really quick when my kids were babies was a good friend of mine. He had older children, and he owned a restaurant that I worked at. And one of our waitresses walked up to the table and immediately said, "What would your child like?" And he said, No. Ask the kid. Ask my daughter what she wants."
Yeah.
And he immediately then kind of said, "Look, kids don't want to be talked down to. They want to be a part of the conversation." And so I kind of took that. And so that's kind of a part of how I write, is when I write to a kid, I want to write to a kid. Like I'm talking to them, and I don't want to talk down to them. I want to make sure that they're having a good time, that they understand. Like I think, can't remember what it was, but I used a word that was maybe a little bigger than what you would normally have in a kid's book. And someone said, "I don't know if that word should be in a kid's book." And I said, "Well, I'm going to leave it in there, because I will tell you that if a kid doesn't understand that word, they're either going to go to dictionary.com or they're going to turn to mom and dad and say, what does that word mean?"
Yeah.
And that is the little bit of learning that we can give to them without actually having to, you know, I don't have to put definitions everywhere or anything like that. And if they already know it, kiddo, you're smart. Way to go. Like mom and dad can be like, "Oh, I can't believe you know that word. That's fantastic. Good for you." You know? So yeah, I think we, you know, it's just all about not talking down to the kids and, you know, remembering what it was like to be one, because we're not that far away from it.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, the billions of years that separate the cosmos, being 10 or 20, 30, 40 years apart is really a blink of an eye.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Author Michaela J said, "I always learn so much from your shows. Thank you, buddy." Oh, you're so welcome, hon. And while I have you here, please hit me up. I would love to have you on the show very soon. So, hon, hit me up. We'll have you here, and then all these great people will be learning from you. And Mike Williams said, "Yes, we can perceive and feel the feelings of others." Yeah, which is all a part of being able to be a good writer, and for people of all ages.
I read a statistic, Chuck. It said the reading comprehension for a child reading a book versus reading a comic, they actually have they learn more vocabulary words from comic books than they do from novels, which blew my mind. But I'm like, okay, cool. That's a win for the comic creators. I'll take it. So
I think a lot of that is because a lot of these younger books, they are kind of talking down a little bit. Whereas comics is just like, look, we're putting this thing out, and whoever reads it, and there you go. And so, yeah, I feel it.
And I guess, as a writer, you're always trying to write for your target audience, right? So if you were writing a middle grade book, your hero might be a freshman in high school. and so that they have a character that they can look up to. So I think that representation, that identification with, you know, the writer, you know, if you can actually connect to your target audience and speak to them in such a way where they want to be spoken to in that way, it's like, you know, maybe you guys can attest, but if you tell your kid, don't do that or don't do this, they might still try to do that. But if you speak to them in such a way where they feel respected and valued and they're part of the conversation, maybe they're more likely to do what you actually want them to do. So,
yeah. You know, it was funny. I play Fortnite with some other comic creator buddies, and one of my buddies, he brought his kid out and we played together, and we're playing and we're having a good old time. Everything's going great, and of course, you know, you're in a team, so there's some back talk and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, I was like, I think I might have gone too far. So the next time we came on, I said to the kiddo, hey, buddy, you know what? I got to say, last time we played together, I feel like I may have been a little harsher than I should have been. So I wanted to apologize to you. I'm really sorry. And he was completely silent. And I was like, is everything okay? Have I stepped over a line or something? And my buddy's like, hey, is everything okay? And he's like, I've never had an adult apologize to me. I don't know how to respond to that. And I was like, oh, dude, it's like anyone else, man. Do you accept my apology? He's like, yeah, we're good. I'm like, terrific, cool. Then I will do my best not to do that anymore. And dude, we were good buddies again.
Kids these days are brilliant. Like what they catch on to and how advanced they are with technology and, you know, some of these games and stuff, like they're light years beyond us, you know, in some ways. So yeah, I mean, just imagine if you went into a business meeting and you pretend like the other person that was in that business meeting knew nothing about business, marketing, whatever, and you talk down to them. How do you think that they would feel by the end of that meeting? Oh, you know, Chuck thinks he's a know-it-all, and, you know, he was trying to, you know, tell me all this stuff like I didn't know what I was talking about. He probably thinks you're an idiot. But same thing with a kid. You know, if you talk to them like they're a human being, they deserve to be on this planet as much as we do. You know,
yeah.
It's amazing what they can pick up on. And just, all they want is a little bit of respect. And it's in the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about that. Mm-hmm. You know, when he gave his kid tools to grow up as an adult, you know, he'd be like, hey, look, you know, you're facing this major decision. You know, you could choose this, and that might, you know, lead you to this consequence, or you could choose this. And he's speaking to him as an adult. And this kid's like, you know what? I don't want to go party and smoke and do drugs and stuff like that. I'd rather, you know, hang out here and do something, you know, a little bit more relaxed, because I know that that's going to lead me down the path that I want to go. So just talking to them like an adult, you know, and I think that they'll make the decision that's in their best interest with the right support. So
yeah.
All my kids are smarter than me, so I gave up even trying long ago. I'm just glad they don't cuss as much as I do, because it's bad. So we're good.
I feel you. I 1,000% feel you. Well, and like, you know, what a lot of people forget is when we were growing up, we didn't have something like Google, right, where we could immediately go, I don't know what this is. What is this? And kids now know. If you don't know, just go Google it, which is why, yeah, maybe we should watch our fucking mouths a little bit. You know what I mean? Because they will look that stuff up. What does that mean? Yeah, right? So, I mean, yeah, man. And that's the thing, is that kids do learn stuff really quick. And I even remember saying to my kids, like, they'd be like, what does this mean? I was like, well, why don't we go look it up together? Let's figure it out. Because I can explain something to you, but getting it from me, you could also get it wrong. Like, I could be dead wrong. So let's go look this up together and make sure we're both right. So, yeah, man, absolutely. Mike Williams is here. He said, you guys need to check out a book called The Book of Storms. It's a book that helps develop empathic affinities, identifies empathic types, and helps certain empaths manage certain abilities, usually very valuable for those with high anxiety. Oh, that's really interesting, actually.
What was that called?
Okay. The Book of Storms.
The Book of Storms.
Actually, and yeah, I believe he put the link to it right here in the chat.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you guys want, I guess you could check it out. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. That's really helpful. See, look at us. We're teaching you guys, and you're coming back and doing the same for us. Thank you. Okay, so I feel like we've talked an awful lot about writing. We have an artist in the house. Donovan, Yeah, look at this guy. Oh, all the pressure. So, what got you into doing? Oh my gosh, sorry, I just got thrown off because my own company just tagged me in a post, and I'm like, I didn't do that. So I think my wife is playing on our publisher right now. Good job, baby. I love you. So as an artist, what got you into comics? What is your origin story that brought you to us today, basically?
Man, it's probably the same as a lot. In the 80s, they were cheap. You got them when you go to the grocery store. It was cheaper than a toy because they were, whatever they were, 75 cents or a quarter. And my parents and my grandparents would always buy them for me. And it just kind of evolved. And then I just was the right age in 1989 when Tim Burton's Batman came out. I was already kind of collecting, and that just pushed me over the edge. And I just kept collecting them. I always kind of drew. And it just was just like a gradual growth. The Image comics came out in the 90s when I was a teenager, about ready to graduate high school. The accessibility of the Comic Cons, you were able to actually meet these guys. And of course, then the internet kind of came up and everything. And going back to your point about diction, if it wasn't for like Alan Moore and Frank Miller and Neil Gaiman, I would have flunked English 100 times over. But instead, because you had to kind of step up to figure out what the hell they were talking about, I was able to pass, and everybody thought I was smart when really I was just regurgitating whatever I read in Sandman or Watchmen or whatever the hell I'd read the week before. And that, that's just where it kind of came from. And then Joseph and I and Jeremiah all met on a Facebook comic book connector page. Just by happenstance, because Jeremiah has cystic fibrosis, and I had a cousin and his wife both passed away from it. And that was kind of the genesis of Heroes for Causes. It went from a character that Jeremiah had created that he cosplays as. And Joseph's like, I think we could take this into a different avenue, into a story. And I was just content to slap together a poster. And then
I said, no, Joseph, that's not enough work.
Yeah, Joseph, well, you know what? Maybe let's do a little more. And we really did, I think Joseph, I think it was you that focused predominantly on the 60s, 70s Spider-Man as far as like the spirit of the book, because they were fairly accessible. You didn't have to, you could pick up every issue and having that overarching story, but really you had everything was self-contained when we were kids because they didn't expect you to go and buy another one, because who knows if you were in Albertsons again the next week when the next issue came out. So that was kind of our focus when we went into it. And that just happened to be, when I was a kid, that's growing up, whether it was Spider-Man, the Amazing Friend and His Amazing Friends on the TV or the actual comic books.
Yeah.
So it just kind of carried with to modern day, I still hit up the local comic shop here in Vegas. I'm about a year behind, so I just keep stacking. I hope my wife's not listening to me. I just keep stacking weekly issues, and I figure at some point I'll either contract some kind of disease that keeps me bedridden, or COVID Part 2 will come out, and I'll have a month to read everything, or a year or two.
Yeah, but how much did you get read over COVID?
None.
Yeah,
I backed up more. It was horrible. So I went into COVID, and I'm like, well, this sucks, but whatever. I got this stack, and then like a dummy, I went to Amazon every day. And I'm like, oh, they're selling this omnibus. Oh, they're selling and then omnibuses, right? Now the omnibuys are the big thing to get. So here I'm getting the same garbage. Well, no, same art and the same classic literature that I already have in 3 other collections, plus a floppy somewhere. And I'm buying a big, thick omnibus. And the person that benefits is my second oldest, who lives in Utah now, but he's a comic collector. Out of all my kids, I got one comic collector, so I did one thing at least kind of right.
There you go.
But he winds up just inheriting all my old graphics. So I'm like, well, hell, here's the Alpha Flight omnibus. I might as well give you my old John Byrne collection. There you go, And I just picked up the Dr. Doom one, so now the little turd's going to get my Books of Doom and my Mike Mignola Dr. Doom, Dr. Strange graphic. And whether he reads them or not, I don't know, because he likes a lot, but he also likes manga, and I'm not sure where he's at. As far as like the books, we collect a lot of the same stuff, but I know he's a huge Scott Snyder fan, Greg Capullo, because that's kind of when he started, was their run. But at least I feel good. I'm recycling.
Yeah, right. Well, and if he didn't like him, he wouldn't probably take
He
him.
wouldn't take him, right?
So
Well,
yeah,
I think he's expecting some kind of inheritance out of it. He's like, once this old guy kicks off, I get to go through all of his comics, all of his long boxes.
I mean, you're already passing stuff, like good stuff, his way. So
Right,
like,
exactly.
He's already getting his inheritance before all the other kids.
Right.
Ryan
I told him
Manel
I'm
said,
getting cremated on top of the boxes. So
"Yeah, that's smart." Ryan Manel said, "I had an English teacher at a community college tell me comic books were not literature. Needless to say, I wish I had a trebuchet nearby for such occasion." Well, maybe that's why they're only an English teacher at a community college. Maybe if they
Right.
respected the medium more, they could work at a better place.
ridiculous.
That's interesting, Donovan. You said you picked up a lot of vocabulary from comics. I think I flunked English class like first, second, third grade, or didn't do very well. It was always a struggle. And then I think the more and more I read, like I started becoming like the star student in English class. So I started going from like remedial English classes like earlier on in grade school to like taking AP English
Right.
in like middle school and high school. And all I read was comic books, like tons of them. So there has to be something to that.
I know at a younger age, for me, Calvin and Hobbes was actually really intelligently written. And even though, you look at it and you're like, oh, it's just a little boy who's imaginative, but he was a super smart kid. And there was a lot of really intelligent concepts and stuff written there where, you'd read it and you go, oh, actually, this is not for kids at all. And, yeah, man, I felt like it helped an awful lot too. So, yeah, I totally feel both of you.
Well, I like it
Sorry.
too, because then you can sound smart when you're talking to your, the astrophysicist and shit. Because you're like, oh yeah, I already know about string theory and all that garbage. I read Age of Apocalypse. It's good. Final Crisis. I know what happens.
They think, oh, this guy's taking some serious classes, and you're like, nah, man, I read all my sci-fi. That's what I did.
Right.
Those
Yeah,
guys took
thanks.
the classes.
Right. Thanks, Jack Kirby.
Yeah, right. Oh, dude, what else do we have going on? We have the same faves, Donovan. I'm so excited. Frank is continuing his Ronin series.
Right.
Agreed. What else? Right. I've been in the Scott Snyder classes for the last year. Greg and Scott are great creators. They're doing amazing work. Yeah. On top of that, storytelling in general can help with problem solving and solutions, spur the imagination, etc. So many benefits. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Chuck,
I totally agree.
I know Donovan, we kind of have that video game kind of background. Did you grow up with video games, like any of the early video game stuff? Did you ever get hooked into like any of the RPGs or adventure series or anything like that?
Huge, massive Final Fantasy fan.
Final Fantasy. So those
Final
were very
Fantasy
heavy.
And Metal Gear Solid were my big ones.
Those were very heavy in storytelling. So like the chat said, I mean that. My critical thinking and like my strategic thinking, like I think like I could apply what I learned in like RPGs and like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff, and like take that into business or take that into like the Art of War or something like that, and like those things would apply because you're sitting there, you're using your critical thinking, you're using reasoning skills and stuff like that, and that's something I think I developed from my passion for video games, for RPGs and adventure and action games, because I really don't see that in my family line so much. Maybe my grandma a little bit, as far as the logic puzzles and things. But yeah, I think all that stuff kind of evolved from my passion for video games.
Yeah. No, and that's the funny thing. Like the things that we learn from other things, I tell a lot of people, if you have a problem with pacing, if you feel like pacing is your issue, go watch 30-minute sitcoms, because the pacing is set perfectly, and you can feel when you're about to hit a commercial. You can pretty much just watch someone go commercial, and they're gonna pop right after that. And I remember I was probably like, I actually remember the show. I was watching the Cosby Show back before when it was good. When we were allowed to watch it. And I was watching the Cosby Show back in the 80s. And I remember it was like 7:27 or something like that, and bad things are going on, and suddenly I was like, oh no, this is going to be a two episode, like this is going to be a to be continued, and I knew that right away because I was like, there's no way that this storyline that they're talking about right now can be finished in the next like minute or two. And sure enough, like 2 minutes later, to be continued. And so at an early age, I was like, oh, cool. And I started to be able to recognize the pacing and how that kind of stuff worked. And you'd be able to see, like, you could feel. And so when I'm talking to people as an editor, I'm like, hey, man, your turn pages, those are commercials, man. How do we want to turn things so people go, oh, I'm willing to wait 3 minutes to come back, and 3 minutes of stupid cereal commercials and floor waxes and whatever crap to see what's going to happen next. And so, you know, all that kind of stuff can really help you if you kind of recognize it, or even if you don't immediately. At some point, you might stop and go, oh, crap, yeah, okay, I totally feel that. Oh, and see, you mentioned video games, and shit, look what you did, man. Dark Cloud, Final Fantasy, Legends of Dragoon, Fable, Fallout, love Fallout, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, yeah.
Those are some classics.
Right? Yeah, RPGs have a ton of text to read and also teaches kids story structure as well, hand-eye coordination. Yep. Around 10 to 15 years ago, I gave out a presentation on the benefits of video games. Good, man. Good, because video games could actually kind of use that help because they've had terrible PR.
Yeah.
Like, everything bad is blamed on video games. Well, I mean, so let's do that. Growing up, what games really kind of, drew you guys in?
Listen, I just spent the whole weekend watching like 10 hours worth of Legacy of Kain and Soul Reaver recaps and theories. So that would be right up there on mine. And my kid was my 10-year-old was watching. He's like, how did you keep up with this, Dad? I'm like, well, the games came out like 2 years apart. It gave me a lot of time to digest what was going on. So yeah, I've always loved that, the Blood Omen 1 and 2, and
that was so spooky. That first Blood Omen game for PlayStation. I remember Diablo, the first Diablo for PlayStation, the first Blood Omen. Like playing those games, and like even Dino Crisis. Like those games were like so like you were always at risk. It was always foreboding. The music was so creepy. You always thought like something was going to happen to you. You were going to get stabbed by like a marauder or something like that. Like you were never safe. And then you kind of like wished for the days of the, just wandering around aimlessly on the village map for Final Fantasy II, where like you run into like some slimes or something like that, and it wouldn't be a big deal, and it's like really lighthearted and campy. But then, the PlayStation, like those games that started coming out, like they were so intense. Symphony of the Night, that's another one. Those sequences with Dracula or whatever. And the voice work was fantastic. It transported you into that story at that time because that quality of artwork and cinematography for some of those cutscenes and the voice actor work, it was just nothing you'd ever seen before. So you got to be transported into the pages of your favorite comic book for that time. Yeah.
Oh, Brian's got to go. Brian, thank you so much, buddy. We appreciate you coming out, man. Mike Williams, Dino Crisis, fuck! That game was ahead of its time. I was really sad when the sequel tanked in the series. Dino Crisis in Space was horrid. And again, video games, same kind of thing. Again, you feel the pacing, and especially with like those long RPGs and whatnot, you can kind of see like a lot of those games, especially they would have moments where they went, you can go wherever you want. And it was like, no. People need some structure, man. Like don't let them. And you can see how they've kind of tried to move away from that. Or if there is stuff where you get to go and do whatever you want, you can there's always an easy way to come back again. So yeah man, they're always always trying to perfect that stuff, and yeah, man.
Yeah, Donovan has some professional video game experience.
Yeah, I managed a GameStop.
I love that.
Problem is, I went in for the interview and they're like, "Are you a gamer?" I'm like, "Not since the PS2," and this was right at the waning years of the 360. They're like, "Well, you can sell stuff, so go run the register." I'm like, "All right, let's go."
Did you enjoy it?
No, I did not. I mean, it was the fellow managers and my district manager was really cool, but as a company, like when I first started, they were flexing their muscle, and then over the few years that I worked, couple years I worked there, they lost their muscle. So it was, I got the whole arc. I got the whole story arc.
Yeah, right.
The fall from grace.
Yeah. I got to tell you, 2020, like, the way they reacted, because I love GameStop. I would every year I'd have my membership, and I'd trade in my games, and everything was through GameStop. And then when I saw how they handled their employees during COVID, and because basically they said during COVID, no, we're an essential service, and I was like,
right.
Fuck you. Like, Amazon, we can find our stuff another way. You are not an essential service. That's not cool. And as soon as that happened, the only time I've walked into a GameStop since then is because as a DoorDash driver, I was sent there to pick up games. That's the only way you're getting me in there now. And it's too bad because I love that place.
Right. Oh, hey, buddy.
Do you have a kid to introduce us to?
Yeah, I was Noel. I don't know what he's doing.
Bring him on.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that's a good point, and that's how they treated their people. And when you do an interview as a store manager and you have some kid that's his eyes are as big as saucers and he like, this is my dream job, and I'm like, well, I'm only going to be able to give you 3 hours a week, so let's use the word job a little bit loosely. It's somewhere where you can go from home, Yeah. So and I don't mean to knock on them. I still have a couple friends that work there, but I don't know. I'm with you.
It's certainly not an attack on the people who work there. I mean, let's be honest. The video game industry as a whole is really rough when you step back and you look how they treat their people and whatnot. But I still love video games and all that kind of stuff. I wish that the people who are at the top would, they understand that everyone who works in that industry, much like comics and whatnot, the only difference is there's money in video games. There's not as much money in comics. But the people who are working in that industry have dreamt about this their entire life. They love it. And so they're very easy to take advantage of. Whereas it's a little tougher to take advantage of someone in the comic industry because you don't have money to throw it on. So, that's going to be a little more difficult.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, don't let Donovan fool you. He's actually our spokesperson because he's so well spoken. So if we ever get on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that, we're gonna give Donovan the mic.
I try to keep quiet as much as possible because inevitably my foot always goes right in there.
Right, but that's why I love interviewing artists, because like a writer, you can see their brain. You can see that creative side, and they're like, okay, I'm going to watch these words right now. And you're like, all right, I know what you're doing. But an artist is just like, all right, so this is what the fuck I think. And I'm like, yay, yay, we're going to get into the mud. I love it.
I wish I could say I did not live up to that stereotype, but I do.
I love it. I think it's important. I think it's refreshing, man. Like, it's nice to be able to get into it, get a little dirty, especially with this kind of stuff. Speaking of, we've already been here for an hour. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is there anything else or any other projects or any other subjects you guys wanted to talk about while we are here?
I'm crashing your guys' party. I'll talk about anything.
Dude, no, but it's not our party anymore. Once you showed up, it's our party.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, man, whatever. Like seriously, if there's anything you guys wanted to bring up, talk about any of your other stuff that we can keep an eye out for. I'd love to, because I mean, you've already brought up the 2 projects, but is there any other projects that you guys are working on? Like Donovan, I know you do other stuff too.
Yeah, I'm going into it's still, I haven't signed anything yet, but I've got the script for another project for a local Las Vegas guy. He's a friend of mine. I've done some work with I just forgot the name of the publisher. How horrible am I? I hope none of them are watching. But it's a local company. Friends of mine run it. I've done some stuff for them, but right now I am focusing on our children's diabetes book. It's kind of taken up my whole summer. And then as soon as we get done with that, I'll go into this other. I think it's like a 12-page story for this local writer here in Vegas. And then I'm sure Joseph and Jeremiah have our next book kind of percolating in the background if they'll have me come back, or if I haven't driven them nuts with my slow pace yet and my old fashioned way of doing things. So as Joseph will attest, I don't even have a scanner. I have to use the one at work. I generally do the pencils and mail them out. I don't know. I was born too late is what it is.
No, I love that.
Chuck, when the worst thing you have to deal with is, a technology discrepancy, I think that's when you know that you have a cohesive team. But like you said, an artist is just no holds barred. Like, they tell you what's on their mind for the most part, whereas a writer might be more careful with the words. So I've realized that my best friends that I've picked up throughout my lifetime are the ones that just lay it all out there. They don't hold it back. If they tell me that my outfit looks stupid, then I might not like it at the time, but I'll appreciate their honesty at the end of the day. So that's why I get along with this guy over here so well.
Speaking of outfits, I fucking love the hat.
Thank you. Every time I'm on Randy's cast, he's like, "Which turtle is that?" I'm like, "Oh man, you got to know the blue turtle."
How can you not know your Ninja Turtles off by heart? Like,
maybe it wasn't comics. When you don't grow up with it, I guess it's it's popular, it exists, but you kind of deny it a little bit. But when you grow up with it, you gotta. If there comes a day when I don't know what turtle this is, I lost my marbles.
Full on dementia at that point.
Yeah, right. That's like the last thing that'll go is my knowledge of the turtle colors. So.
Right. At some point, you're gonna throw a hat on. You're gonna be like, "Oh, this is Raphael." And they're like, "Oh, poor bastard. It's purple. We got to get rid of this dude. He is not good. It's time to put him in a home."
Send him out on the ice floe into the ocean.
Right? This Eskimo is done. Sorry, guys. Dude, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Can you guys let us know where we can track you guys down, where we can see all your amazing works?
Oh, me first?
Donovan, you go first.
Heroesforcauses.com is where our books are. We have other merchandise there. And like Joseph said, everything, again, just to throw it out there so my karmic wheel keeps turning. Everything goes back to the foundations that we support. So Cystic Fibrosis is the Colton Underwood Foundation. And then the Pediatric Brain Cancers for the American Cancer Society. And then soon we'll have the Children's Diabetes Fund. You can find me all over social media. Instagram, Facebook, and that's where I post everything. I quit paying for a website because I can throw it up there for free, and I can use as many new friends as I can get. So I'm always going to hit that confirm button, even if you're a hacker.
All under Donovan Peterson.
All under, yeah. I'm not very creative when it comes time to getting names. Plus, I think I had a teacher in art school tell me try and keep it as simple as possible. Otherwise, you're diluting the brand. Not that there's much of a brand there, but.
I heard a saying earlier today. I was looking up some marketing YouTube videos, and how you normally hear, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Yep.
This girl said she was talking to her like Mary Kay, like associates or something. And she said, as Mary Kay would say, keep it simple, sweetie. So the next time you got to give that knowledge to somebody, you can tell them to keep it simple, sweetie, and be a little bit softer with the message. But yeah, for me, Joseph A. Michael on all the socials. Like Donovan said, heroesforcauses.com. The Children's Diabetes Foundation project will be wrapping up hopefully at the end of September. So we'll have that book. If catch us at a con or something like that, come talk to us. And if anybody has any suggestions or they know someone in their life that's been touched by a particular cause or disease or something, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you and include you in some form with one of our future comic books, because you can't have enough like consultants or readers or something like that just to give that factual and sympathetic interpretation of of the causes that we represent. So it's super important to us.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Mike, thank you so much. We really appreciate you, man. That's terrific. All of you guys out there, thank you so much for showing up. Guys, seriously, I had a blast hanging out and meeting both of you. Can't wait to check out all the rest of the stuff you guys are working on, and hopefully have you guys on another time.
Thanks for
Sounds
having me.
good. Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, guys.
Glad to do it. All right, everybody. Guys, go take care of yourselves. Have a great night. I will see you again next week. We've got Jess Rogie on the show, who is a podcaster on Fringe FM. She's going to be absolutely just so much fun. Always nice to get someone out here who's not necessarily doing comics, so we get to learn about some new stuff that we don't necessarily know all about. As always, my name is Chuck, and I give a fuck. Take care, everybody.